The other thing I've seen you do a lot of is HYROX. What's that about?
Well, literally running and weightlifting, pretty much. That's the best way to put it in. So it's a hybrid fitness event. You have 8 stations and you run a kilometer between each station. It's a lot of fun, but it's really hard. I absolutely love it, and I'm really, really invested in it at the moment.
Okay, what are those 8 stations?
So the first station is 1,000 meters on the ski erg, 50 meters sled push, 50 meters sled pull. I think it's 80 meters sled pull actually. No, it's 50. I should actually know this. This is 100 meters, no, 80 meters burpee board jump, 1,000 meter row, 200 meters farmer's carry, 100-meter walking lunges, and 100 wall balls.
That happens right at the end.
Yeah.
Like why that combination of exercises?
I think it's because they wanted to do something different. So CrossFit's been around for such a long time, and it's only probably in the last 5 or 6 years CrossFit has become into sort of general public. It used to just be CrossFit Games, elite athletes, but everyone's doing it now. So I think HYROX wanted something that was, I don't want to say easier, but more accessible to the general public.
Yeah.
And I think those 8 stations are something that are functional in your sort of everyday life. Lunges, walking upstairs.
For sure,
Farmers carrying shopping. Sled pull, moving the sofa back. Sled push, pushing the sofa forward. Ski urban rower, that's your cardiovascular. Wall balls, lifting a baby, for instance.
I think it's just absolutely phenomenal how it's kind of like taken off and becoming a thing. And I've kind of like, I've watched different iterations of fitness trends. CrossFit was definitely one of them, right? And CrossFit had a much harder time because everyone like cussed the crap out of CrossFit. Like, look at these idiots, what are they doing? And to be fair, in the beginning, it was a bit sketchy because it was just like very randomly programmed. And then now it's a lot more efficient. It's a lot more like you got much better people programming for CrossFit. It's at a much higher level of athleticism. They've obviously like learned a lot from the injuries that were caused and like, now actually doing it very well. And I say this as well about just group exercise in general. I don't want to like get done for slander, so I'm not going to say any particular names. But there was definitely like some group exercise programs like way back in the day that they just seemed a bit random. And as a trainer, I was getting a lot of people from these group exercise classes that like were coming to me saying I got injured on this and this and this. I'm like, okay, cool. And then watching group exercise in general just evolve, like all the different gym chains coming up with their own strength and conditioning classes, with their own lift clubs, and making it like, okay, well, we know that group works, but we need to actually make solid programs that actually help people and train them well so that they actually progress physically as well. And so that I've definitely observed in the last 5 or 6 years. The run clubs have been pretty solid, and that's probably like hopefully being done really well as well in terms of programming and making sure people are safe. And then HYROX is like the latest sort of trend, even though it's like not group fitness per se, and people do it in like doubles and
doubles. You've got relay teams as well, so 4 people at a time. But I think with HYROX as well, because it's such a big thing now, so many gyms have taken on, so they do so many fitness classes.
I've seen Third Space have opened up like a HYROX studio.
And the good thing about I think HYROX as well is they haven't gone and done, I don't mean to slang across it because I do love CrossFit, but they haven't gone straight in and programmed HIIT sessions every single day. So like I'm an affiliated HYROX coach, and on their systems, when you look at it, you can have a look at their programming for group classes, and it's very, very well structured and thought out, and like the team who are their strength and conditioning team have planned it very, very well. So you have engine classes, power classes, aerobic classes, all just to get you ready for HYROX.
Well, okay, so it's got an element of like very specific training phases. How accessible would you say that is to everyday people? So let's take, I'm just going to go with 2 examples, maybe 3. Example 1, person that doesn't do any exercise at all, completely sedentary, maybe like an office worker, and is kind of like, let me try doing something for my health and fitness, to somebody who has a gym membership, goes in phases, like I'm sure you've got people that like this, where they have a few months on and a few months off, right? So they're kind of like, they dabble when they do a few bicep curls and some bench press and whatever, and they use some of the machines. And then to the person who's kind of like, let's say somebody who's just doing like bodybuilding, but maybe getting a bit tired of it. It's like, I want to keep training. I like having fitness in my life, but I want to do something different. So completely sedentary, part-timer, consistent, but in a completely different sport. How accessible is that training for each one of those individuals?
I'd say very accessible. It'd just be down to that coach on the day. Obviously, whatever's programmed, the sedentary person would obviously have to use lighter weights. And then going up that scale, you can just scale it and adjust according to their fitness levels. Like the sedentary maybe wouldn't push as hard. You be a bit firmer on them and be just work to your capacity. If you need to stop, that's perfectly fine. And then going up, it's a bit more of the push. I'll keep going. You've definitely got this in you. So it's definitely very, very accessible to everyone, from elite all the way down to...
Yeah, I suppose if like for that sedentary individual, if it's accessible for them, the other two categories are kind of like, it shouldn't be too much of an issue. How many people do you kind of like observe going from like a different sort of sport to kind of being like, oh, like I'm in transitioning to HYROX and getting really into HYROX? Has it had that kind of pull?
I haven't seen it. I do know some top level athletes who've done HYROXs, but I think they still love their sport. And I think HYROX isn't new, but it's still relatively new within the industry.
Yeah.
So it's not where it wants to be at the minute. And I think they're still focusing on how they want it to go. Because I know like they want to go to the Olympics, for instance.
Wow.
Yeah. So they're really looking at top scale. And I think if they do get that, we're going to see some shifts in like elite athletes maybe coming to actually train for HYROX.
It seems a lot less. It seems to have a lower risk element in terms of injuries and stuff like that than CrossFit, bodybuilding, and other sports as well, like, you know, whether it's football or tennis or rugby, because they're not tame exercises, but they can be done in a tame way.
Yeah.
And again, the entry point in regression is quite low on, you know, a rowing machine, a skier, right? Low impact. The burpee broad jump is probably like the only one that seems to be like, it requires like a high degree of athleticism. I had to run these interviews for PTs like a month ago, and this one guy turned up, and basically part of the interviews, I don't set this up, but the company wanted them to like also run these little group sessions, and they had to make up like the exercises in the circuit that they would do. And one of the guys, when it was his turn, he created one where they basically had to do these broad jumps across the studio. I'm going to guess it was like HYROX inspired. And then one of the other applicants who was having to be a participant, this guy literally did the whole thing in 3 leaps. Like just out of nowhere, I'm just like, what the hell is happening here? Absolute, like, and it turns out he does HYROX. But like, yeah, Jamaican guy, you can tell he's got like these sort of like really long limbs, absolute genetic freak. But the distance that he covered in those board jumps was, I'd say, it's completely insane. It was well out of like average, way beyond average. I was like, no way can the average person even come close to jumping that far. And, you know, even acceleration and deceleration and landing mechanics are quite complex. So when it comes to that particular thing and a beginner, what's your like observation of how well do those two things end up meshing?
It's a hard one because it's one that you want to get them to, because that's athletic performance in itself. So the agility, the quicker you can move your body, the quicker you can sprint, etc. But it's always about taking time. So someone who's not had that level of strength and conditioning from somebody who's been training from 11, 12, for instance, will need more time than just that gym work. So getting themselves strong to be able to cope from the forces of a broad jump, for instance, because it requires a lot of force. Your tendons need to be ready, your ligaments need to be ready, just to absorb that shock.
So it's not something like, it's definitely something that in some cases requires a little bit of pre-training before they can get into. Probably not the best idea if you've not got much training behind you to kind of just get straight into that particular part of the event.
Yeah, I'd definitely say so. Someone who's sedentary, for instance, should be on something like a 16-meet block to get them ready if they wanted to do HYROX. You can go and do your burpee broad jumps and just go into it, but you just risk an injury. For instance, I've got a client who's training for HYROX at the minute now. I'm just doing the running phase for her. She had 2 different plans from a HYROX coach. One of them was high volume and one of them was lower volume. And she asked me, which one should I go for? And I said, this is your first HYROX, isn't it? She said, yeah. I'd recommend you go for the low volume. You could probably definitely do the high volume, but you're just going to risk yourself getting injured more because the volume's a lot. Looking at the 2 programs, it's high volume, and you don't want to risk yourself getting injured. You want to enjoy the sport, you want to have fun. So lower volume can still get you ready, and your risk management, can't even talk. Your risk management's there, so you're not getting injured, and that's what a lot of people need to look at as well.
It's interesting. Like injury comes up so much in all the conversations I have with, you know, the trainers that come on, and it's like the universal thing that we all basically end up dealing with, right? Regardless of what the sport is or what the training outcome is. And what are like the most common injuries that you observe that come up in HYROX?
Because there's a lot of running, a lot of knee injuries. I hear, oh, my knees are hurting. My hamstrings are hurting, my calves. But I just generally think that's down to potentially bad programming from coaches. A lot of people don't do calf work. They don't strengthen their hamstrings. They may do a couple RDLs, which is good, but they don't specifically target and strengthen those hamstrings in a sport-specific way. So I think there needs to be more knowledge put out there.
That is, yeah, that's really interesting. Hamstrings and calves, like, the knee thing would have been pretty obvious, but for a lot of people to be kind of feeding back that they're having trouble with their hamstrings and calves, because I don't know how fast like you're going in this HYROX event, right?
Some people are fast, some people are. Everyone goes at their own pace. I'd like to say. I don't want to say fast and slow, because I think that's quite rude.
No, that's a fair statement. Everyone goes at their own pace.
Everyone's going at their own pace. Yeah. So if running 6 minutes is hard for you, that's fast. If running 5 minutes is hard, that's fast for you, and that's perfectly fine.
Okay, so hamstrings and calves are like two key areas to train if people are struggling a little bit on that side of things. What other things have you found are quite useful to bring up?
I'd say having a good 6 or 8 week block of just pure strength training, and within that strength training, you're obviously targeting your compound movement, so chest, deadlifts, your hinging, quads, squats, all of that. And core is one of the biggest things that I'd say to focus on, because if that trunk and that core is completely solid, everything else falls into place.
Because like if you say core to anyone, they'll images. Yes, right. Yeah. First image that comes into people's brains is like, I'm going to do a bunch of sit-ups. But then how much do sit-ups strengthen your core? Past like the first week or two, not that much.
Yeah.
So to create a new image for people hearing the word core, what kind of training are we actually talking about?
So I could name loads, but
what exercises would you like?
I'd go for dumbbell pull-throughs. So you're in a high plank position and you're pulling a dumbbell through and you're trying to stop your body from rotating. So you're working your obliques.
I really like that one.
Abdominis. That's one of my favorite movements to do. Dorsal raises are another good one.
Describe the dorsal raise.
Dorsal raises, you'll be laid face first on the floor and you're in a sense trying to reach yourself back, legs up and arms up. So you're trying to get yourself off the floor using your lower back. Still keeping your abdominals engaged as well, so you're completely rigid through the whole movement.
Okay, a little bit back. You know, when we're looking at the trunk, you've got flexion, extension, rotation, and side bend.
Yeah,
essentially, and anything that kind of loads those movements. And anti-rotation is like what you've kind of mentioned earlier as well. So while sit-ups are technically flexion, they're not very heavy, and so you can do the cable crunch where you can add the cable weight to it. Yeah. I'm not a big fan of the abdominal crunch machines, but technically, and for some people, they have like reported that they quite like it and they feel like they're working quite hard with that one. Leg raises, hanging leg raises on the Roman chair, as long as you're actually moving through the trunk and not just moving through your hips. Side bending is like quite easily accessible actually, because sometimes you literally just have to grab a kettlebell or a dumbbell and get a little bit of side bend action going. I really like side bends on the Smith machine. It's one of my favorite places to do it. And one of the things I like to point out about side bending, which I feel like a lot of people don't interpret very well, is instead of focusing on the squeeze and the contraction of the side bend, actually to load the stretch of the side bend. And if you load the stretch of the side bend, you're more likely to put the weight through the obliques, and you're more likely to then pull back through them as well. So I that's one I really like that. Yeah, I found that's helped a lot with helping people connect with the side bend. You've got side planks you can add some abduction work into there as well, with the hip dips. So they tend to be really good for training core as well. The Superman or Dorsey, I can't remember what the name you gave it.
Dorsal
raises. They can be good, but again, similar to the sit-ups, they don't have that much load to them. Back extensions on like a glute ham raise with load, again, can start to like make that a little bit more challenging, but dorsal raises are a great place to start.
I do quite like the Copenhagen plank as well. That's another
it's a really good, really good Copenhagen plank. And cable rotations for rotations, and rotational med ball throws are my two go-tos for rotation. And with the cables, instead of just doing it in a standing position, actually kind of going into like a half kneeling position, or like anchoring yourself against the bench just so that you can load it a little bit heavier, and to not treat core exercises like flimsy, like body weight exercises, but to treat them like every other strength exercise, where you're actually trying to make it progressively a bit more challenging, gradually load it. And once you have that progressive overload in play, now you'll start to get that really strong developed core, and then that transfers over into more forced production in a lot of your other movements.